Anyway, tuning in. Welcome to another episode of HR Leaders Live. I'm Chris Rainey, founder and CEO here at HR Leaders and host of the HR Leaders podcast. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and partner in crime, Matt Burns, former CHRO, global HR industry analyst and host of the Thinking Inside the Box podcast. Today, we've got a special guest. We're joined by Enpei Lam, who is a global people analytics executive and founder and CEO at TalentAINow. Welcome, Enpei. How are you? Nice to see you.
Doing well. Pleasure to be here. Nice
How,
to see you as well.
how's life on the entrepreneurial journey treating you?
It's been exciting. It's been exciting 2 months, since we launched. Actually, a little bit less than 2 months.
Yeah,
So, we've been talking to a lot of people. So, it's good. It's good.
nice. Why now? What was it that you thought that this is the moment where I'm gonna go out and build my organization?
Yeah, we can get into the detail, but technology has advanced so much, so that I believe that to build up a people analytics capacity, what it used to take a decade now could take months or even weeks, right? So I feel like, hey, if I get another job in the corporate, I might be able to build this out, but what do I do after? So
Interesting
I
point.
feel like, yeah, yeah. So I feel like, why instead of doing that, I could go to different companies and help them build up the capacity in a rather short period of time, and and then get it running, and then go on to another company to do the same.
Amazing. You made that sound really easy.
But
That's
that's the theory. In
so,
theory, it's easy.
it's simple as that, Chris. You are right though. The advancement of technology has been exponential, right? It's only a few years ago that we first started. Not a few years ago, the role of a people analytics leader is relatively new, in the grand scheme of things, but the technology is caught up so fast. Do you think now more the challenge for organizations and the people analytics function will be more around the soft skills as opposed to the technology? Because that's where I see a gap in many of the companies that I speak to.
Yeah, and both soft and hard, right?
Yeah.
So you definitely need the soft skill to to connect to the people, and get the synergy together to work on the right project for the organization. But the hard skill is needed as well. So
Hmm.
I know all the apps has been developed and designed for the ease of the user to get on it and use it, but still you will need to certain time, there's still tricks and tips that you kind of have to know it and kind of find out in order to make things to work.
Hmm.
And some basic Excel work, some basic Excel programming skills are still very needed. When you look at all the work that we're doing. So I'll say both soft and hard. Not necessarily really
Sure.
leaning towards
Yeah,
their
no,
side.
definitely. It's just interesting because when I speak to other people analytics leaders like yourself and I ask them some of the key challenges, a lot of times then it's not technical, the replies. How do you sell this internally? Right, as an example. How do you manage the key stakeholders?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. They're like, these are the things that they didn't really think about
Yeah,
when
and
going into the
telling a
role.
story, that's most
Yes.
important, right? So I came out as a programmer, right? Or technical correct. Really love building a model, like writing the code to crunch out the data. Telling the story is an afterthought. I typically left to my boss to do it before, and all of a sudden, as you kind of grow into your role, you become the person that have to tell the story and tell your leaders why this is important, right? Just telling them a whole bunch of numbers is not going to help. You're going to tell them, hey, say for turnover. You just tell them, well, we can decrease turnover by X% by doing this, by promoting more 10% of people. They're not going to buy it. You're going to tell them why we're doing this and what is the reason we're doing this, right? And what's the investment behind it. So there's the whole architecture or the whole design of the story behind it, right? That's also needed in
Yeah.
in people analytics.
Well,
Um,
and that's worth double clicking on. I think, you mentioned the art and science blend. I think that's a really critical insight. And you mentioned data. I think one of the things I learned about running my own analytics practice was that data is both objective and subjective. And you
Mhm.
have leaders who want to tell their own story, and they actually go to people like yourself or people like myself, and they say, I want the data to tell this story. Help me build a case that builds this outcome. And you almost have to reverse engineer the data to tell that story.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you obviously work for some large organizations with some very, talented as well as very, influential leaders. How did you navigate stakeholder relations with stakeholders that were, oftentimes had a mandate or had a clear outcome in mind, and they're coming to you trying to build the data story around that? How do you reconcile perhaps the numbers from the narrative?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a little bit easier if your stakeholder is is your peer, right, at the
Sure.
same level. So it's a little bit easier to convince and tell them, hey, you're not looking at the right place. Um, Instead of looking at these particular areas, you need to look at other places in order to really fix the problem. Um, and typically people, after you build a trust and a partnership with the colleagues that you work with, typically they're and building trust is not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, right? It's part of the soft skill. You takes time, right? First you came in, they don't know what you are. Like people analytics, some of the people haven't even heard about that. Like what do you do? And after a few times you provide, hey, actually, if you look at the turnover in this area, if you look at the promotion rate in this area, like, hey, if you look at DEI, we need to focus on this. Um, they start to open their ears and start to listen to you. Like, oh, yeah, maybe this guy has something that could be helpful, right? And to help with each other's work.
Yeah.
After that relationship is built, you got to keep it right. Yeah, you can't tell them, the promotion is 10% today and tomorrow you tell them it's 5%. It's not going to work. So you have to build a pipeline that's consistent and reliable. Then your partner will start trusting you, right? And this is the part that you in the door, like you close the door, shut the door, and that's when you crunch the number and make sure that all the pipeline numbers stay the same over time. Um, for senior leaders, it could be a little hard. They might have an agenda in mind and ask you to do an analytics that came out with a different result. It takes time and effort, and again, coming up with a true story to tell them, hey, if we really want to say tackle this problem, say turnover again, throwing money at the problem may not be the best solution. I mean, it might solve the problem for now, but let's look at the number. Okay, so if we increase pay by how many percent, right? Yeah, turnover tends to go down by how much percent, but this is for this year. We may not have the money next year. And what do? Right? We have to build out a solution that's sustainable for long term. So you have to have a convincing um, point, right, to really tell them and supported by evidence,
There's no point in
right?
paying people more if you have a toxic culture. So that's not going to solve the problem. We can keep paying people more, but they're still going to leave because we have a terrible work environment that we've created. This is a good segue to the topic. One of the reasons that we wanted to chat to you today, I know you're very passionate about navigating the ethics of AI. It's a topic that keeps coming up over and over again in our community. Let's sort of set the scene. What role does ethics play in the development of AI, especially in terms of addressing potential biases in the AI systems?
It is everything because AI, you can't build ethics into AI. So AI is the morality, is the culture, and then the human behavior that built around the result of AI, right? I mean, you can dump anything into AI, it comes out, with with the result and outcome based on the input, right? So if you put in like a biased data, if you put in biased input into an AI, you come out with a biased outcome and output, right? So this is what ethics needs to be built around when you do analysis. You have to set guardrail, and also how do you do that? You have to. For some people, they might hate it because it will hurt efficiency, right? But you really need to set up with some peer review, some structure, some process to really, decipher the result before coming up with a strategy and let alone implement the strategy, right? You have to go through layers of evaluation to look at the result coming from the AI. So, I mean, I'm not saying AI is bad, right? AI is great. It shrinks your analysis time and the data crunching time, from weeks to seconds,
It
right?
comes,
And
yeah,
that's good,
like you said, it
right?
comes
But you
to
can't let go the after process, like make sure that the input was right, the output was ethical, right? Before coming up with a strategy based on the AI results.
it comes back to your point of the concept of data in, data out. If you're going to put biased data into train AI, then it's going to
Yeah,
output those biases,
absolutely.
and then the machine
Yeah,
learning algorithms are then going to only amplify those biases even more. So,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And imagine
Yes.
you run it on DE&I, right? Then your DE&I just gonna get more hurt. Yeah, it's gonna get worse if you put biased data in and then tell them to, hey, look, how do we increase DE&I? AI is not gonna be able to tell you the right answer.
Well, to your point, it's an accelerant. So it accelerates whatever is in the machine, as it were. And I'm curious. I mean, we talk about acceleration, you talk about the rate of innovation, especially within AI. We've gone from a system whereby, to your point, analysis could take in months or weeks. And now we're down to days and hours. And we're seeing every day a new AI tool or 10 pop into the market. Large language models being obviously a large driving force behind that. There's a lot of organizations, though, and leaders in those organizations that are kind of doing a bit of hand wringing. They're trying to figure out how do they reconcile the technology on the market? What should we embed in the organization? How do we do so responsibly? If we're creating work products for clients or for public consumption, how do we make sure we find the balance between speed, but also accuracy and integrity? When you're working with clients today, I'm curious, how do you navigate that question? So if I come to you and say, hey, I'm working for an organization, we're looking at introducing AI in a more meaningful way, how do you find the balance between ethics and integrity and speed of execution in a world where there are deep fakes, where there are lots of false signals? How do you help them navigate that space?
Right. So what we do is, so if I'm not trying to sell here, right? But what our products do is we use AI very cautiously, knowing that a lot of clients are very hesitant about using AI as well, right? And they have the good reason why they want to be hesitant,
mm.
because for data security, for not exposing their data to the open AI, to they just simply don't know if they're putting in biased data to get the biased data out, right? So there are a lot of concern around using AI, and I think those concerns are very valid. What we do is we the product that we build, we use AI very cautious, right? So we use the machine learning model. I mean, some people didn't thought AI is just a chatbot, but it's not just a chatbot. All the machine learning, right? Static modeling could be AI as well, because it constantly training and testing, right? So that's learning what has been in the pattern to come out to tell you that, hey, what is going to happen, how do you solve a problem, right? That doesn't really get your data or anything exposed to OpenAI. It still stays within the model, right? So that's, I often spend the time to explain to the client, this is nothing is being learned from the model that is run with our product, because it's all stays within here. We also do use ChatGPT, right? We use some chatbot AI enhanced function to read the result of the model. We don't let ChatGPT to learn anything, feeding out the result to the open AI community. What we're only using their capacity to read the result, not the data. So that's important, not the data, not the model, but the result, and then come up with a observation summary and write up, a first draft. What is the story to tell, right? And we all know that ChatGPT writes very elegantly and much better than I do, because I have an economics background, right? So we have to leverage it, we have to use it, but we comes again, we need guardrail, right? So we need a human eye to look at all the writings, because when it's in a room, they still write something weird, right? So we have to make sure what they write what the story that they're telling is sensical and ethical before we can publish and present to the leaders.
I love that. So me and Matt have been talking about this recently about how you contain data, and we kind of use the words knowledge vault. So you have sort of the knowledge vault inside your platform where the data is stored. You're then taking the outcome from that data, and only then are you putting the outcome into ChatGPT, for example. So you don't have that sort of data breach or IP breach or leak.
Yeah.
As well. But
yeah,
regardless, we still have to check it. It isn't just
right. Exactly. We have to check it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, data breach is huge. So even, for our product, by default, after the client upload their data and run the model, and get the result, they can download the result, the ChatGPT write up, the PowerPoint, the charts, and all that. After that, as soon as they log out, the data is gone. So
okay.
it's not like somebody can hack into your account to get the data you upload, because you can't even do that. After you run the data, it's gone. So that's the extra layer that we built in for security.
Is that something specifically you've done, or is that quite common?
I'm not sure if my peers are doing it, but we're doing it.
So, no. Yep. All right. That's interesting. So all of those people that they feel like they're going to lose their jobs to AI, there will be we still need human beings to check it on the other end.
We do. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not gonna it's not taking jobs away. It might be, right? So there are certain jobs that a company may not need to hire, right, in the future. Particularly like new companies when they set it up, like say before they need like 10 people to do it, now they might need 5 or 6 because of the technology. Not just AI. I mean, this happens across the course of history, right? As technology advances, certain jobs will go away, but also there are certain jobs will come up. Yeah, right. So it's like a transition of the skill and kind of job role that will be needed. You just keep evolving.
I'm really trying to. One of the things I'm working on right now is my Matt bot and my Matt GBT to try and replace Matt as the co-host. So people.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, I just came up with Matt bot. I was really proud of Matt bot, by the way, and.
Nice.
Matt bot and Matt GBT. We got. If you haven't already got those, Matt, we need to get Matt GBT going and the Matt bot, and we'll have a co-host that never sleeps, is always working, right. makes more sense as well.
Increases the quality and the level of execution and the accuracy of the information, all those things.
Especially the question that Matt asks, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
oh no,
the quality with the human version sometimes leaves a lot to be desired. What I like about the idea of this is, and I've heard this phrase, I'm sure we all have, is the idea that AI as a direct competitor, to use a kind of a tired word, isn't necessarily going to be the force that drives the reduction of jobs. So people won't necessarily lose their jobs to AI, but you might lose your jobs to somebody who's using AI. And I think that is the fundamental shift we have to make going forward. Is it's an incredibly powerful tool for people in a number of knowledge-based roles, where if you're pairing somebody's unique expertise, whether that be institutional knowledge, background, experiences, also, their intuition, and pair that with knowledge of large language models, artificial intelligence, machine learning, that becomes an incredibly powerful cocktail that can be used going forward. Enpei, I'd love to talk to you a bit about how you help leaders and organizations embed artificial intelligence into the way of working, such that it's not necessarily potentially a threat or a competitor, but rather becomes a complementary tool that they can use to be more effective going forward.
Right. So see, Matt has great questions. I don't know how you train your Matt bot to ask questions like that.
Matt just asked that. He just asked that to ChatGPT whilst we were talking live. That's what happened. You didn't see his hands. His hands are moving.
ChatGPT actually asks me questions, and I give ChatGPT.
You have to answer, right?
We should do a whole. I don't know why we haven't done this already. We need to do a whole show where we have the questions and we ask the audience, but we also ask ChatGPT. and just see
Yeah.
and see
Right.
and see
Yeah.
how we get on. Anyways, I'll be
Right.
quiet. I'll
Right.
be quiet. Go for it.
Right. So I mean, AI definitely will be able to complement, all the leaders' questions and what they want to know. Without AI, I can't promise my leader that, hey, I can return, your questions in a week or two, right? What I said, what used to take months to run and build a model now could take seconds or minutes, right? So that's the point that I always bring it up to the leader, and they probably don't care because I mean, yeah, who knows? I mean, I want the answer now. So if you tell me that you used to take months and now take minutes and seconds, great. Just give me in the next hour, right? So um, and what we and that's what we aim to do as well, right? So we know leaders are very impatient, well, not leaders, but stakeholders. Clients are very impatient. They want to know the answer very quickly, and they want to make sure that the answer is accurate, right? So, what we try to build is, hey, um, uh, the product that we have is, I mean, is first very user friendly, right? So anybody um, um, who has a set of data and know how to use the internet will be able to drag and drop. It's like posting your picture on Instagram. Okay. So you can just drag and drop your data, and then with a few clicks of a button to set up the model, you can run the machine learning algorithm in the back end. And our tool will return the results and all the insights that the leader will need. Right. So yeah, I mean, and this is to kind of meet the need of today's demand from all the clients and leaders who want to get results very quickly, especially they feel like, hey, now you have AI, you can do this. Well, yes, most of the time, yes, we can do this, as long as we set up the pipeline, we set up the data pipeline to kind of have all the sources transformed and cleaned up in a way that we can feed into the model. um, we can actually turn around with a lot of analysis very quickly.
Hmm. I feel like one of the ways I've been seeing it, Matt, is really changing the way work gets done using AI, and how that's, for example, if I just use me personally, a lot of the admin I would do around creating content, whether it's writing questions, whether it's titles, or whether it's coming up with a storyboard for content, would take me hours and hours and hours and hours of time. And
Right.
and that's
Right.
time away from building relationship with my team. It's away from having more one-to-ones with my team to as well.
Exactly.
All of the things that I should be focusing on that I want to be focusing on as a leader, and being more present. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that can all
And all of a
be.
sudden you have a lot more time to innovate, right?
Yeah,
To
exactly.
brainstorm, to
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So
to
that's
talk to your team, and kind of well, more time to kind of grieve together, like, what are the problems that we're
yeah,
trying to solve? What are
exactly.
the problems that came up, right? Yeah.
That's
So
what AA does
so
for
you can
me.
kind of fund it.
Yeah, that's what AA does for me, and also it gives me it exposes me to different thoughts and perspectives that I wouldn't normally. When I'm writing stuff down without the assistance of AI, I'm doing it from my previous bias experiences as Chris. When I'm using ChatGPT, sometimes it will surface different insights and perspectives and points of view that I've never really thought about before. So it starts to kind of
Right.
inform and give me different views and perspectives, and makes me a better leader and also a better content creator, as well. So those are just some of the ways that is sort of impacting the way we work and the way that work gets done. Another example is for my production team. We're now using AI in our editing. So when we're creating thumbnails,
Right.
when we're creating, even we have an AI video editor that will edit a podcast for you in literally 10 seconds, as opposed to taking an entire day of
Yeah.
edit. Is it perfect? No, but it does a lot of the work as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my creative team can spend more time coming up with ideas
Right.
and etc. So those are a few things. What about you, Matt? What are you seeing?
Well, I think one thing to point out that I think is relevant is that while AI has extended our reach and our capacity to ingest information, we still have a capacity issue with human beings. Like as human beings, we can only ingest so much information. We only can process so many things at one given time.
Mm-hmm.
So I find a lot of my time today is, yes, working with AI, but it's also, to your point, spending more time with my team to help them understand, okay, now that we have access to all this information, all these insights, what do we do with it?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
what's the starting point
yeah.
beyond this point, right? So
Yeah.
I actually find that I meet with my team more in an AI world than I did before, where a lot of work would occur asynchronously in silos, and brainstorming or content creation or creative conversations look differently than they do today, where now it's like, okay, let's type a question and answer. Now we have thousands and thousands and thousands of insights. Now it's more about curation, synthesizing, and then telling really good stories, back to Enpei's earlier point. So I think it's the work shifts in terms of, in a world where information is ubiquitous and knowledge is free, essentially, how do we illuminate the areas that are most relevant to ourselves, to our audience, to our customer? That becomes the gift that, at this point at least, AI hasn't developed sophistication around that nuance. We still need humans, we still need employees, we still need colleagues and partners to help us point the flashlight on what we should be looking at.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's a really good point, Matt, because now we're consuming, but doing nothing with it. I see a lot of people doing that. And I always say to Shane, my co-founder, like, kind of that's one of the differences. A lot of people, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books around entrepreneurship, and even my wife recently said, "Why don't you do that anymore?" Because I'm busy executing what I've learned. so AI just made that even worse, because I've got access to everything. Now, so I've kind of been a lot more intentional about, okay, this is what I've consumed, go away and implement that, execute on that before I start getting more and more, because it can be an overload. So I think it's a really good point, Matt. And I think companies are going to struggle with that in the future, where there's no shortage of ideas, there's no shortage of information. It's how do we package that and deliver value for our employees internally, for our customers. It's almost going to be there might even be a role of the future where that's just someone's job to take, like, how do we take all this information and focus on where it goes and what avenues that takes and how we execute.
21st century librarians. This is the new librarian role. Before it was, tell me where the book is on the shelf in the library.
Oh, interesting.
And now it'll be, tell me what, either whether it's a prompt engineer, whether it's, here are 100 insights, here are the 6 that are most important, like that. But there's still going to be a role in terms of, but again, it's not the same of, let me provide you with the knowledge. It's, now that we have the knowledge, let's look together on what is the most relevant for this particular use case. That's how it evolves going forward. But it's going to be challenging in the transition, because it wasn't too long ago. I mean, I grew up in a world where most of my coaches were baby boomers when I first started in HR, and those who had knowledge had power. Well, now knowledge is democratized. So it shifts the context of the power dynamic around information, and organizations and institutions are going to struggle with this transition. But I think it's people like Enpei and his organization that help us sift through all that noise to get to what's really salient and relevant at this point in time.
Right.
You know what's going to happen, right? People are going to ask the AI what they should do with it.
Yeah.
So then they're going to create even more. That's exactly what's going to happen. People are going to get all of that. And they're going to, okay, how do we, okay, let's just ask the question straight back to the AI.
Which will place a greater value on creativity. Because if we're all using the same tools to ask the same questions, achieve the same outcomes, it'll be pretty clear to see, like it is today. We can tell when somebody wrote a post on LinkedIn and ChatGPT. I can tell you it's spotted a mile away. It's been on it's been on the market for 60 days.
Yeah.
Creativity,
especially when they write very well.
Yeah,
exactly. When I see Chris Rainey write something that's eloquent on LinkedIn, I'm like, there's no way.
There's no way.
He got some help with that. It probably rhymes with ChatGPT.
One of my prompts, Matt, is dumb it down a little at the end.
Right. And it replies, we can't get any dumber than this.
We can't do any more, Chris. This is as low as we can go on there. But you're right. I think the differentiator will be people's individual creativity. No longer is there a class of access to the wealth of knowledge, like you said before. The higher you got in a company, the more knowledge you had. Those days are gone. In many cases, now the differentiator is going to be your creativity, and how you execute on that creativity is a skill on its own. I think that's one of our unique the unique points of being an employee at HR leaders or even organizations. We're small, we're fast, we're agile, we execute very quickly, we act in a market, we have the first mover advantage, and that's where we win.
So
Yeah, go for it.
the AI can really tell you, all the quantitative and all the correlation, all the mathematics behind it, right? So you still need a human to, well, first to understand, what question to ask, right?
Yeah,
What am I looking at? What kind of challenges do I need to look for, right? And then you prioritize them. Well, and then AI does the crunching, and okay, so say you want to focus on one challenge, AI will do the crunching and guide you, provide recommendation what you would need to do to meet your goal, but then you still the person to do it, right?
yeah.
AI is not going to do it for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you still have to come up with the strategy, you still come up with a development plan and all that, and then organize your team and come up with creative ways to design program so that you can be implemented and executed to get to the outcome that AI is telling you, right?
Yeah.
So
It's going to be really fascinating to see how this evolves. Like, I feel like each department or team is going to have like a prompt engineer there, but side by side with a creative. So you've got this really interesting partnership that you have existing
right,
in each part of the organization. One person, this is how we kind of gather the knowledge, another is how we execute on that. And we haven't even said that again is a whole new type of skill set that you need as a leader.
right,
You know,
right,
how do you
definitely,
how you make
definitely,
a data making? We used to say obviously how data driven leaders. That's now evolved. I don't know what the next version of that. It has a whole new meaning,
right,
to because how do you take that data, and how where did it come from? Does it have bias?
yeah,
Is it even
yeah,
is it even real because it's been pulled from the internet? It doesn't mean it's right as
yeah,
well. So
yeah.
there's going to be a lot of
And
people.
the leaders needs to know what's the capacity and what's the actually there's still limitation of technology, right? What's the capacity? What's the limitation of the new technology? So he or she can leverage it to the full capacity, right? So this, we can do, but we still cannot innovate. We still need somebody to design a program, right? For
Yeah,
certain things. So and it's part of our job, or you hope that the leader will learn on their own, but it's part of our job to kind of communicate and advise and provide guidance to the leader, like, hey, what could be done with today's technology and what could not,
yeah.
right? So um yeah, so they know what kind of direction and what kind of work we still need, to do and get done, and how would the work be allocated, among different teams. So
I think
which is not much different than today. I mean, it's obviously an accelerant, but to your point, Chris, the data driven leader of today, there's whatever we're creating, whether it's people analytics, whether it's machine learning, whether it's artificial intelligence, there needs to be a human interface whenever those technologies
yes.
connect with humans.
Mm.
So that's the role we're going to play going forward. It's the ultimate blend of art and science. But I think about even, back as a CHRO, I often would lean on my people analytics experts or my HR technology experts. And the interface between that and the business was often the HR business partner who would have to translate the
Yeah.
expertise and insights into
right,
practical and actionable steps that our operational leaders, our sales leaders could put into place. All we're doing now is we're giving those functional experts supercharged ability to access and analyze
Mm.
information and to provide more value. But again, I don't think anyone's advocating for a world where you give your operational or sales leaders access to ChatGPT in lieu of an HR business partner so they can do their own, harassment investigation. Like, we're not at that stage yet.
No, no, no,
So there still
no.
needs
right,
to be a human interface in the things that we do, but it does, to Enpei's earlier point, shorten the time to insight and increase the expectation on speed to execution around things that are critically important for business. I think that's the
yeah,
interesting thing for me going forward is there's this misnomer, I think, going into this, that once technology is in place and more mature, it'll create more space for brainstorming and insights and creativity. What's actually doing, and we're seeing in practice, is that We're just increasing the expectation of people to move faster. We're not creating space for research and for creativity and for insights or for team building. We're just saying to people, I need the answer now in 30 minutes. It would have taken you 7 days before. So I think that's the interesting space we all have to navigate, is how do we use AI for a force for good? And that's where, again, back to our earlier conversation, the ethics come into play. Is there's ethical implications of the information that comes from AI. There's also ethical implications on how we use AI to derive outcomes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we have to save that for part 2, Matt. As well.
Matt GBT versus Matt Burns.
Yeah. Enpei, I appreciate you coming on the show. Before I let you go, where can people connect with you and learn more about the organization?
Yeah, I mean, you can come to our website, TalentAINow.com. It kind of tells you, what we aim to do, our mission and vision, what kind of projects that we have to deliver people analytics capacity for your company, for different companies. There's a contact at the bottom of the webpage, where you can just type in your message and then you can send it to us, or you can find me on LinkedIn too. So.
Amazing. Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Everyone listening, those links are in the chat. So wherever you are, make sure you go and connect there. As always, please make sure you hit the little bell button on LinkedIn. That way you'll be notified next time we go live. So if it's on my page or Matt's page. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of the weekend, everyone. Weekend? I said the rest of the weekend. We're not even there yet. Enjoy the weekend. That was wishful thinking in my head, that I thought it was already in the weekend as well. Enjoy the weekend, everyone. And we'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone. Thanks a lot. See you later, Matt. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.